Do you support multi-millionaires on welfare? In other words, do you think it is appropriate for a pensioner couple living in a $4 million house in Sydney, with $300,000 savings to be on the aged pension? Surely being a multi-millionaire on welfare doesn't pass the pub test, right? Not being a smartass, can anyone who doesn't agree give me legitimate reasons as to why this should not be the case? They can downsize, reverse mortgage, take on roommates, etc. What's trashy if you're poor, but classy if you're rich? Receiving money from the government. My mother, living in her modest suburban home with modest amount of savings, and a term deposit, just lost her pension because her overall assets are too high. How are this couple hiding theirs? I have said this until I'm hoarse. Net assets including family home above a certain amount, the pension phases to a loan. When the pensioner dies, the estate repays to Centrelink. So much of the pension that was phased as a loan. In this situation, there is no financial stress, no problem in trying to get an interest-costing reverse mortgage. If the net assets value declines in that pension phasing range, the pension portion goes up and the loan component goes down. Converse applies if net assets increase. Let them get the pension, but it's all put on future tax to the property. If it's sold, they must pay back the pension amount from the sale before other costs. The value of the PPOR exemption needs to be capped. Personally, I would prefer the pension to be paid to everyone and to have the amount received recovered from estates over a certain size. Without doing any analysis, let's say whatever the median estate is with the debt indexed. Would remove some administrative burden and lead to a fairer Australia. The worst case is that people would spend their wealth while alive or gift it to family before they die, both of which are preferable to the current system. I have a family member that helped his parents buy a bigger waterfront house, $8 million in the lead up to retirement using their super and money from a family business. They now have minimal assets and claim the aged pension. He helps them maintain the home and with expenses. He expects to inherit the house in full once they pass away. In the meantime, the government covers almost all their costs. Middle-class welfare is exactly how the system is designed to work. You are supposed to claim everything that you are legally allowed to. Difference is richer people have more resources to do this properly and navigate the system. As well as a limit, there just needs to be a simple and well-supported scheme that allows people to draw down on equity without needing to relocate. I'll probably be slammed, but I think it's fair. If you've lived your whole life somewhere and are eligible for a pension, you shouldn't be forced out just because the value of your house has gone up. Everybody knows that our purpose in this one shot at life in the universe is to keep the ultra-wealthy as rich as possible. Maybe they should be eligible, and the government should recoup the pension from the house asset once they die. Australia is a rich country that should look after its citizens. Some people do not have much or any super. Therefore, an aged pension is necessary. Arguably, PPOR should be treated as other assets, but the asset test limits should then be higher to take account of that. But chose to bludge instead, mate. I don't think these people are waiting until a year before they can get the pension, then selling up all their assets and their home to then put all their money into a multi-million-dollar property to then go and live off the pension. Which by all accounts I've heard is barely enough to live off. $300K is not a lot of savings if you are not working and have to live 20 years as a couple. No. Reverse mortgage the property. Or charge the estate for the pension. How many people are actually in this situation? I mean, as someone who is struggling to afford healthcare on a very low income in large part because of said poor health, and got a $400 tax bill this year, sure, I'll throw a bit of side eye. Pay your taxes in your working life and get a pension. Interest from the $300K gets deducted from pension. Family home not considered. Why should they move away from family and friends just to live? When they bought their home it cost $5,100K, brought up a family, retired with meager $300,000 savings super. Hey, that's us, we're not rich. $300,000 for 20-30 years retirement for a couple is abject poverty. The house is one thing. Moving old people into new houses is stressful for them and often expensive for the system. They need a lot more support in an unfamiliar environment. The 300k is another. The old age pension has an assets test. You sound like a nasty bitter old Karen. Hell no, the father of an ex-coworker was basically exactly this. Got the full pension but living in a multi-mil home in Sydney. Complete bullshit. They have enough assets to support themselves, they don't need my tax dollar. You make good points. I recall there was a thread here a few months ago where OP described how they helped their parents game the system. They essentially got their parents to sell their assets and buy a really expensive home in a big city. Since PPOR's value isn't used in means tests, they were able to get a whole host of government benefits. OP regarded this to be unfairly good. We don't want to incentivize financial irresponsibility to be rewarded with free cash, do we? You've worked hard, saved and been responsible. No cash. You pissed up your whole life. Here, have $400 a week for the rest of your life. People that paid a house off have probably paid 20 times more tax than housey owes during their life. Why not get a fraction back? A simple solution for people with $$ PPORs might be: 1. You get the pension. 2. When you die, the pension. 3. Compounding YOY is recouped from your estate. You can't just go around making changes that affect people's lives like that. Old mate probably worked for 40 years and bought a sensible average-priced home in 1970, and planned their retirement on the laws that applied at the time they were working. Changes to age pensions need to be made so people retiring in 30 years have time to plan ahead. When will people understand that saying someone has paid taxes all their life and therefore entitled to a pension or other welfare is ridiculous? Did they drive on roads? Use public transport? Call the ambulance? Shit in a toilet? Taxes are meant to fund things like this. Sure, most would agree our tax dollars are poorly spent by government, but either way, those dollars are gone. TLDR, tax dollars are not a savings account. Aged pension isn't welfare. If you've worked for it, you deserve it. If they've worked all their life and paid taxes, then it's only fair they reap some of the benefits now. Sure beats supporting those who choose not to chase work. Smiling face with sunglasses. God, this is not the answer you think it is. Frankly, as someone who's very politically left, what you're suggesting will hurt the majority of the elderly in a very big way. I don't think you should be forced to sell your family home, so I think the family home should be excluded from the asset test. No, I do not. Only for those who were told that the aged pension system is a tax retirement scheme, and believed that they were paying tax, and would later get a pension. This is a specific generation of people, most of whom have already passed. People who were told to plan but are instead scheming, absolutely not. Close the loopholes and make things fair. There's far too many big, almost empty, rotting houses because of this pension system. This is affecting our housing crisis. The problem with including the PPOR in the pension means test is that it significantly disadvantages someone who lives in Sydney or Melbourne compared to their counterpart in Adelaide or Hobart, even if all other aspects of their situation are identical. And no, houses in Sydney weren't always this expensive. It's not the fault of elderly people that the property bubble in Sydney and Melbourne resulted in the value of their home exploding upwards. I support loaded questions. I sure as hell don't want to live in a country where old people are forced to upend their lives because their home increased in value too much since they bought it. The family home exemption should have a limit. Maybe locked at 3 times the median house price for that city town. Higher than that and you are ineligible for the exemption. Imagine you and your partner buy a modest home, live a modest life, raise a family, make precious memories, etc. Then, one day, for reasons beyond your control, your home becomes worth $1 million. You now either have to move from your lifelong home or be refused a pension at retirement. Seems pretty unfair. Edit looks like our Australia is leaking again.